Hey crafty friends, this is Chelsea. Welcome to today's video. We are starting out with completed artwork because I wanted to do a little layout share for my new scrapbooking guide. Now, I have not created a scrapbooking guide in over 4 years, but with the change over to Stampin' Up, I thought it would be a great idea to provide you with some inspiration for layouts using all the beautiful Stampin' Up product. I know it can be tricky to take that card inspiration that's in the catalog and transfer that into layouts. So I thought by showing you how I'm doing it and providing you a guide with measurements, cutting diagrams, assembly directions, like a full guide, that would really help to get you started using those products. Now, this layout has lots of fun things that I want to point out to you. There's 6 pages all together, and I have a few things that I want to kind of demonstrate for you and show you that I did on these pages. First off, you might notice that I do have some darkness around the edges of my pieces. I inked everything very gently with black ink around the edge just to add some definition between the patterns, give everything a little bit of an edge. And I didn't want to use brown or anything because I wanted to keep it still fairly clean looking. Now, all these great vegetables over here, don't those look awesome? I didn't have to color any of those because one of the fun features of Stampin' Up papers and dies, at least some of them, is that you can cut out the pattern paper. So this set, Market Goodness, I didn't actually end up using the stamps. I used the paper with the dies. So this is so cool, especially if you're trying to make a bunch of images quickly, you don't want to take time to color and shade. You can cut out directly from the pattern paper. Isn't that fun? So I would just lay out my dies, washi tape them in place, or if you have a magnetic plate, you can use that, and then die cut them. I got so much use out of this, and that's why you'll see on these layouts these clusters. Because it was so easy to just make clusters of vegetables. Now, I will say there's a couple that don't have dies. The bell peppers do not have a die, so I did hand cut those, but they are super easy to get around there. Another fun thing that I did is I made some of my own titles, journaling spots, as a digital. So this will come in the PDF guide and you can print them out. You can print them out on different colored papers if you want. You can ink over them when you're done. And I'm going to show you in this video how to die cut these out. So I used the Spotlight on Nature dies. I love these dies because they are so versatile. I know I'm going to get a ton of use out of them. They have really fun patterns around the edges. And I used this largest one, this next size down. That's the smaller one is on there. This larger one I used for both the Oh Happy Day and the Love Grows Here. And you'll see when I show you the PDF that there is a circle around them and they are perfectly sized to use this. But if you don't have these dies, you could definitely use other ways for cutting a circle, whatever circle cutting system you have, or other circle dies. I also used this little one here to create my scallop border. So hopefully if I hold this up here, you can kind of see the texture that's on there. It's a little bit hard to see on camera, but you can definitely see it in person. And it creates this really nice texture. So these are all just circles that I put underneath to create that border. Now you could always do another kind of a border and use like a scallop punch or something like that from your stash. So let's switch over to my computer really fast and I'll show you how to do these circles, and then I'll come back and show you the other pages and some of the other things that I added. So within your PDF workshop guide, you're going to have a few pages that look like this. I have a couple of titles for the other pages, and then I have a whole bunch of phrase stickers that I created. Well, stickers, I'm using them like phrase stickers, but basically you can trim these out with your trimmer or you can hand cut them, you can ink them up, whatever you want to do. And I created way more than what you need, so you can choose which ones you want to add to your pages or save them for other projects. And like I said, you can print these on white or you can print them on other colors of cardstock as well. Here are the circles and what this will look like. These lines around the outside are just kind of guidelines. The dies will be on the inside of those circles. So if you wanted to hand cut them, you could. But then you kind of have a guideline for how big they're supposed to be, so it's not just blank. And then I also have a couple of tags, which I'm going to show you on another layout. And I created just a blank one here that you can die cut with a tag die cut if you don't want to hand cut. So all you need to do is bring up your printer and choose whatever printer. I'm going to be using my Epson 8500. Now, key step right here, you need to make sure you go to scale and you want to put this at 100%. If you do not change this, it will not be the same size as what I am showing you. So if you're wondering why your circle dies don't fit around it, it could be that you didn't print at 100%. So you want to make sure you change that. And then since I'm printing on cardstock, I like to use my rear tray just so the cardstock doesn't have to bend around inside my printer, and I find to get a better result that way. And then for my cardstock, I am going to choose the photo semi-gloss paper because my cardstock has a little bit of a sheen on it. I'm using a Hammermill 8.5 by 11 cardstock. You can play around with your printer and your settings. I just don't want it to put out a ton of ink. So I'm also going to change the quality to normal. Now your printer may not have as many options, and that's okay. You can just play around with what you have and see what works best. And I did make all of these black and white so that you don't have to have a color printer to be able to use these. You can add color afterwards with ink. And then we are just going to print. So here are our printables, and I have my dies, those two ones that I showed you, and you can see how they just fit right inside the circle. Now I find it's best to actually tape them down into place with some washi tape when I'm cutting them. And I will have to cut these down a little bit to fit it through my die cutting machine because I don't have one that will take 8.5 by 11 paper. So I just put these in place. I like to put my washi tape on the outside of the die, so just in case it's extra sticky, I don't have to worry about it lifting any of the inside paper or anything if it gets a little bit stuck. And I'm just going to move this circle around till I'm happy with where it's at, and then I'm going to stick that one down. And then I'll just take my scissors and cut around this so that I can fit it into my big shot. You don't have to worry about doing that because anything outside is just extra. The important part is going to be what's on the inside of these dies. So I did end up cutting those into two separate pieces to send it through, but now you can see that beautiful, just kind of lacy edge to it. And you can either choose to leave them white or you can ink them with colors. I just put a little bit of black around my edges here and then just added them like you would a sticker or a die cut. Super easy. For the little phrase stickers, what I like to do is go in and just rough cut out what I want. And I would use my trimmer, but I think maybe a guillotine trimmer is the best for this because with my just like sliding blade trimmer, I have a hard time getting it to go exactly where I want, and I find it easier to use my scissors. So I want to cut just on the inside of that black line. I want to cut the black line off. You could leave it on if you want that as your border. I decided to cut that off. And one thing, when it's such little pieces, it's pretty easy to get your cuts fairly straight. Okay, and then I'm just going to cut this last one off. And then if you want to have an inked edge like I do here, you're going to choose your color of ink. I actually use the eggplant ink from Close to My Heart. And I'm just going to put this right here on the back of this cardstock. So I'm using eggplant. And then I'm going to use, I really like these small little brushes for details like this. And I'm going to start off on my scrap paper, or if you're on a crafting mat or a glass mat, something like that. You could also use like a little dauber or something like that, and just keep adding ink until you get it to the depth that you want. And I liked that two-tone look with the white at the top, or you could just fully ink the whole thing if you want more of a solid color. And then you can just use these on your projects just like you would a sticker. Just add some adhesive on the back. A lot of mine, I actually added foam tape to the back. So that's what I have here. I added foam tape, and it just gives it a little bit of lift. Hopefully you can see that. All right, so let's look at the next page. So here you can see that custom title again. Again, I just hand cut this. It's a very thick black border, so it's super easy to cut. And I will show you how I inked that in a moment. But let's just look at the rest of the details on this layout. I inked the edges of all my papers again. We have lots of opportunity for photos. 6 photos all together. And if you had more, you could always put in like 2 3x4 landscapes here. And I should mention too that I have cut down my photos. So I usually always make my photo mats the true size. So this outer white part here is 4x4. This inner part here is 3 3/4 by 3 3/4. So I would print my photo as a 4x4 and then just trim a 1/4 inch off of 2 sides to get the right size to fit on here. The reason I do that is just to maximize my paper usage. Because as soon as you start cutting things at like 4 1/4 by 4 1/4, you lose so much paper. And when I cut them true to size, I can get way more out of a 12x12 and not waste your cardstock or my cardstock. So here you can see I did that same kind of scallop border, except this is a larger circle this time. Really love how that stands out and kind of end caps this layout. These little bags that you see on here are fussy cut from the pattern paper. They are super easy to cut, and same thing, just go in, rough cut it first out of the paper. You can cut out of the whole sheet, but I find that really cumbersome and hard to get the exact line that I want. And I want to leave a little white border so it looks like it was die cut. And as I'm rounding the corner, I'm rotating my paper, and that will help me get a smooth cut. I hold my scissors straight still, and then I rotate my paper, and that will help me get nice smooth corners so it basically looks like it was die cut. I'm not leaving a huge white margin. I'm kind of trying to match what the Stampin' Up dies cut as far as margin. They leave a thin white margin, so I aimed for the same one, but you can see how quick that is to cut out. Not bad at all. And I love how cute that is with some of that thread, the linen thread on there. I will bring this closer for you so you can have a look. Now the flowers on here are fussy cut. There's no coordinating dies for them, but I didn't go in super deep. Just kind of went around the outside edges, leaving that white border. So they weren't difficult at all, and they didn't take me that long. And then I'm layering in the other die cuts. I did these on jade cardstock from Close to My Heart, but you could also use the garden green, which coordinates with the Stampin' Up colors in this paper pack. I just love these patterns, and of course you guys know I love purple, but if you don't love purple, you can easily swap out the colors. You can flip the paper around. There is a little bit of leftover paper from this guide, so you could swap out if you really don't like the purple plaid. You could use something else. As well as for the inking, you could easily add the orange, which is pumpkin from Close to My Heart, or pumpkin pie from Stampin' Up. You could choose any of the colors that are in the collection to do your inking if you're not into having the purple in there. And then as far as the flowers, there are purple, yellow, and red flowers. So you would just want to change these ones to the yellow and red flowers and make the purple more of a small accent. You can see I have another little word phrase strip over there. It's also popped up. Lots of fun details, more of that thread, and you can see how I have the greenery just tucked into all the clusters to add another dimension to it and kind of fill out my clusters a little bit. All right, I'm going to show you how I did this title because I did some masking to achieve this effect and get the areas that I wanted darker without too much struggle. So when you're doing this, you can keep your piece on the paper if you want, or you can cut it out. It's totally up to you. I'm going to keep mine on here, and I'm actually just going to put my all-purpose mat down over top so I don't have to move my layouts, but I'm not getting ink on them either. Okay, I have a couple little pieces of Post-it note here, so it's sticky on one side. You could use masking paper, or you can use whatever you have, but I like Post-it notes because they are not super sticky. They're just sticky enough, and they're sitting on my desk, so they're super quick and easy to grab. And what I'm going to do first is I'm going to mask off this right here. You can see how there's still some black showing. That's perfect. You want to make sure your mask is not going over into the white area at all. So if you have a little bit of black showing, then you know for sure that you've done it correctly and you're not going to end up with any kind of weird lines or anything that are a little bit harder to deal with. So I thought maybe I'll show you with pumpkin ink. I did mine with eggplant, but then if I use pumpkin, then you can see the difference. So I'm just going to grab that and a blending brush, and I'm going to start on my mask and just bring it in slightly. It's better to start slow and build up the color than start with way too much and try and walk that back, because it's not very easy. I'm putting the majority of my color actually on my masks because of the size of brush I'm using. If you use even a smaller brush, you could come out a little bit farther, but I'm going to leave it like that. I want to still have a bit of highlight on the ends. And then I'm going to rotate my masks and I'm going to mask off this little part in here. Now this, because it's under the banner, will be the darkest area. I don't even really need to blend. I'm going to come straight in and just layer like a heavy application of ink. Remember, as the ink dries, because it's dye-based ink, it will lighten a bit as it dries. So just to keep that in mind. And then we want to mask off this piece right here. And where's my sticky edge? There we go. And that piece right there. Okay, and then I want this to be the darkest on the edge, and then I'm going to keep my color kind of around the outside and keep the middle my highlight. So I'm just going to come in, start laying down some color. I love blending brushes with dye inks. They work really well. And they allow you to just slowly add color until you get it to the exact depth that you want. And after it dries, if you realize it wasn't quite enough color, you can always go back in and add more. So I'm always a fan of starting light, slowly adding until you're happy with what you've got. So you can see how I'm kind of avoiding the middle. You can leave the middle like completely white, or you can come back in and just add, once almost all the ink's off your brush, just go over it very lightly if you don't want it to be fully white in the middle. And then once you have your banner the way you want it, you just go ahead and cut it out. And since it is such a bold line, it's pretty easy. Now, if you're wondering why I did this instead of doing Cricut cuts, I just thought this would be nice for people who don't have a Cricut or you don't enjoy using the Cricut. And it's really hard to make titles and things without Cricut access these days. So in case you don't have Cricut access, this is just another way we can do that and make things that are very custom. All right, I finished cutting that off camera. Let's just move this mat. And if you don't have pumpkin ink, Nectarine actually is a pretty close match as well. It's just a little bit lighter. And you can see by switching that up, it just brightens up the layout. And if you're not a purple fan, you can definitely switch it up because we already have the orange going on this layout. All right, let's have a look at the last set of pages. I hope you guys are loving these and feeling inspired to use this collection to document your garden memories. I thought that was a fitting title. I also left some room for journaling on this layout because I thought if you're talking about garden memories, you might have a little story that you want to tell, but you could definitely switch this up when you're making it. If you don't have a lot of story, you could always bump this down lower here to be more beside this cluster and just kind of rearrange this cluster to make room for the title. And for these banner pieces in the corner, they are going to be slightly longer on the cutting guide because I wanted to give you the option if you want to move your title down because you don't really have a lot of journaling, then these will be a little bit longer and fill in that space, or you can just adjust them to the height that you want. So that's what I did. I adjusted them up to where I thought it looked good, and then I just trimmed them off with my scissors once they were attached. So let's tell you the measurement here. About 1.5 inches for the green one, and about 3/4 of an inch for the polka dot one. So that way you can adjust it depending on where you end up putting your title, and they will be the right size for you. You can see I did more fussy cutting with the little containers. I love this little, what do you even call that? Like basket, I guess, or barrel, and then the little bag as well, and then more of the die cut vegetables, more of the sprigs. You can see this nice orange halo that's around there. I used the pumpkin ink and my blending brush, and I blended on the background first. All of these are on white cardstock. I used white daisy, but you can use whatever white that you have. And then I just cut out following the line on this and added a little bit of black ink around the outside because I have the color behind it. I figured this didn't need any color, and that kind of makes it stand out a little bit more from the background. This is up on foam dots or foam tape. I didn't use a ton of foam tape on this project. A lot of my stuff is fairly flat, but remember, you can always add more dimension if that is your style. A lot of my little phrase stickers are popped up. Some of my vegetables are popped up. I still have those really nice textured dots. And then here are the other printable pieces that I used. So for these tags, you could definitely use tags in your stash. You don't have to use this if you don't want to. And that's why I gave you 2 options on here. So I gave you one that has a tag. So what I did was I cut on the inside line of this, so I don't have that bold black line, and then I just used a regular standard office circle punch to punch out that circle. It fits perfectly. And then for this one, actually what I did was trim on the line and then use a little punch to punch out the hole. And I actually flipped it over. I was using toffee cardstock from Close to My Heart, and so then there's 2 tones. So this one, I actually flipped it over to use the backside, which was light. That's why there's nothing printed on this. This is just for an added detail, added texture. And then I added the linen thread. This one's in a bow. This one is just looped through with a couple of pieces. And I love this Dirty Hands, Happy Heart. That's usually what happens when you are in the garden. And for this one, I wanted to give you the option. You could either use that tag or you can die cut this with a tag from your stash. So I have this fancy tag set. And actually, there's a couple in here that would work for this. And I'm sure you probably have some tags in your stash that will work. But what you'll do is just put it over top and then kind of rough cut around and put it through your die cut machine. Now, you can do this on white if you want to. I did mine on toffee cardstock. If you're using Stampin' Up colors, then you can use Pecan Pie, which is a match for this paper collection. If you want to get your hands on the guide, the information is down below. There is a link there. If you're in Canada, you can get it for free by placing an order of $80 or more before tax and shipping on my Stampin' Up website. And if you are international, there is an option for you to purchase just the guide. I hope you loved seeing these pages. I hope it gave you some inspiration. And if you make these and you post it on social media, I hope you will tag me so I can see what you made. Because the magic in pages is really when you add your photos. When you add your memories to them, that's when they come alive. If you're ready for some more scrapbooking inspiration, you can check out the video that's on the screen. And I will see you next time. Bye.